My name is Raul Carvajal. I am the festival producer and production manager over at Games for Change. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the VR for Change Alcove Challenge presentations. I am incredibly excited to be doing this session with you all. We're going to be hearing from lots of folks who've participated in this challenge, and I am really happy to be sharing their work with you today. Certainly, I want to give you some background. This year, I've been lucky enough to help lead this challenge, which has been a partnership between Games for Change and AARP Alcove, and specifically AARP Innovation Lab. And it's been incredible for me personally to help drive this as part of our XR for Change initiative. As many of you know, Games for Change started folding in XR and immersive experiences into our programming and into our mission that fosters those media as they relate to education, health and wellness, and even civic and social engagement. So this was a natural fit for us, given that Alcove was a platform that really inspired some similar change in society, particularly as it relates to intergenerational connection and well-being in general. So here to introduce a bit more about that session is Cezara Windrem. I'd like to invite her to the stage for a moment so she can join me and give a bit more context. So we'll wait for her to jump on in a second. And to tell you a bit more right before she gets on, we launched this and announced it actually last year at our last festival, which was our last in-person festival, of course. And Cezara was there for that announcement. We formally launched the beginning of this challenge in January. And the goal was to invite developers to speak a bit more and approve of some potential additions to the Alcove VR platform. Alcove VR has been created by AARP Innovation Lab and is currently hosted on Oculus Go and Quest coming soon. And the goal there, of course, as I mentioned, was to create an app. There's really an environment where you could do many things, different sorts of experiences, all having to do with intergenerational connection and, in general, really promoting health and wellness for all of AARP's community, but in particular thinking about aging adults and their families, right? There's Cezara. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Raul. Good. Finally here. Thank you so much for having me, and definitely thank you to everyone who submitted, and to all those of you at home joining us today. As many of you know, Alcove is a virtual reality platform created by AARP Innovation Labs. And it is available on Oculus Go and coming soon to Oculus Quest. Alcove connects family members across generations by bringing them together inside a virtual world filled with immersive experiences that are relevant to all ages. And through this challenge with Games for Change, we aim to inspire developers to create virtual reality experiences that focus on enhancing quality of life, promote health and wellness, and deepen the intergenerational bonds with loved ones, including older adults who are at higher risk of loneliness and social isolation. And more so, we wanted to offer winners and finalists the opportunity to go beyond just a limited in time experience. Too often, we see amazing work happening at industry sponsored and hackathons or showcased at festivals. And unfortunately, oftentimes they never get the chance to move beyond that phase and really into making an impact, a true impact to people's lives. So through Alcove, we aim to overcome that and offer a new opportunity for continuation and truly bringing to life amazing experiences. Because see, from day one, we had this vision for Alcove, not only as a platform for intergenerational families to enjoy and benefit from, but also as a platform that developers and creators can be a part of. And we activated on that vision by introducing the Alcove Playground, which we've built in partnership with our portfolio startup, Rendeavor, and lauaunched at CES earlier this year. The playground is a developer ecosystem that winners, finalists, and honorees of the challenge will have the opportunity to join and show off their winning productions, so their hard work can live on and be seen and benefited from by larger audiences. And well, in addition to that, we'd like to invite all creators to explore Playground and apply for joining us as well. Anyone can do that at alcovevr.com/playground. And well, of course, to all of you watching us today, we invite you to check out Alcove and use it with your own dear ones, family and friends across generations. As I said, Alcove is publicly available on the Oculus Go today, and it's coming to Quest very soon this summer. So with that, we are very thrilled to have received dozens and dozens of great submissions, of which the judging committee had an extremely hard task of selecting the top ones, 5 finalists and 4 additional honorees. We'd like to congratulate them all for the hard work and amazing experiences. And it is our big honor today to introduce the top 5 finalists in this session and let them each impress you with their magic.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that introduction, Cezara. We'll be hearing from you shortly. I also want to reiterate that we're going to hear from each of these 5 panelists today, but we'll have a special reveal tomorrow on the main stage that will announce our winner for the challenge, which we haven't actually said on this call so far. But the grand prize for our winner was $10,000, as well as the inclusion in the VR Alcove platform. So we're really, really excited to be announcing that. But the money's not everything. Certainly, all of the work was really spectacular, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about it. So, Cezara, thank you. We'll see you soon. And with that, I'd like to announce and bring to the stage our first speaker, named David Lobser. David's a developer right here in Brooklyn and is going to be sharing a bit more about his experience visitations.
Hello.
Hi, David.
How are you?
Feel free to screen share, and I'm going to turn my stuff off just so you can get started.
Great. All right. So in the chat, I'm just going to share a link to this presentation. There are some links in the presentation, so if you want to follow those.
David, I'll interrupt you just real quick to say that for anybody who's viewing, we've got multiple tiles here on the screen. So what you should do actually is double click on the screen share that David's got, and that will maximize the view and move both David and I over to the right. So that way you get a clear picture of what he's sharing.
Cool.
I think we may have lost David. You should be able to click back in there, David. No worries. We'll get you back in shortly. I'll mention that we're going to have the 5 panelists do their presentation, and right towards the end, at about the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to have a Q&A with everyone. So we'll invite all of the panelists on, and we'll be able to hear from each of the panelists in their presentations. David's refreshing. It is a new platform with us.
Okay.
He's back. Thank you very much.
Great. Okay. Is it up? Is it good?
Looks great.
Okay, cool. So the name of my project is Visitations. It has formerly had a couple other names, and it's been a work in progress for about 5 or 6 years now, I'd say. I've been slowly adding to it over time. I'm just going to hop right in and just play through this video really quickly. I imagine it's not going to be like full frame rate for everybody, but this is just some screen captures of what happens when you put on the headset. It's basically a series of virtual vignettes, some of which are abstract and tunnel-like, and some of which are natural. And it's designed for the Oculus Go and the Quest. Is the audio from the videos coming through as well?
Getting the audio through, but all the imagery is coming through fine.
Okay, that's fine. Yep, so that is not all of the scenes, but most of the scenes that I have at this point. Let's see, let's go back to full screen. Yeah, so my background is in animation and visual effects. And this project actually started when I went to ITP about 6 years ago and started to get into coding. So some of my early experiments in code have actually made their way into this project. So it's been an organic process getting this project together. Part of where it started was there weren't a lot of VR experiences that I just wanted to relax in and be in. So part of this was just me making experiences for myself to get myself into a hypnotic and relaxed state of mind. I had 3 or 4 scenes that I had built for myself, and everybody can still hear me, right? This is still going? Still good? Okay, cool. Yeah, I had built 3 or 4 scenes for myself, and I was planning on just sort of like releasing it somehow. But I put that on hold until I was introduced to a ketamine clinic in Midtown Manhattan, and they were interested in helping their patients through the experience of being infused, which can be sort of anxiety provoking for some people, can make people a little uncomfortable. People are also in a space where they're just in a clinic, and it's not that exciting. It's like it's just like gray fluorescent lighting. So the idea was to sort of create distraction therapy and just a nicer place to be for them. So in order to get the experiences into a place where it was going to work in that setting, I had to make some adjustments. We debated making the scenes interactive and settled on non-interactivity because people are sort of in a place where they don't want to have to fumble with gear. They haven't done VR before, so we just wanted to make something that was going to be extremely simple to use, and just something that they could be in and relax in that was going to be nicer than the clinical space that they were in. So we did a survey. It was about 20 patients, and 4 out of 5 patients preferred the experience with virtual reality versus without. So just sort of over time, and again, as a result of personal experimentation and sharing with other people, I sort of whittled down a set of techniques that I use for a lot of these scenes that have been working really well for me and for other people. One thing I started with was having compositions that were very centered. So there's always a place to look that's very obvious. Every one of these experiences has a point in the distance that everything is focused around. And the composition is kind of tunnel-like, so it's like sort of closer to your head on the sides, and then it draws your focus off into the distance to that point. So the idea is to sort of create a meditative object. Everything's constantly changing. So as you're looking at it, like you're never in a place where you say to yourself, oh, like this is looped, or like I got this. It's like I don't have to pay attention to this anymore. Basically, everything's constantly changing. So it's it comes out of my own experience meditating with binaural beats, where it's like if you layer up your binaural beats enough, then you have enough different rhythms happening that you can't really pay attention to everything at the same time. So that's kind of the idea. It's like there's enough different elements in each of these scenes, and they're changing enough that there's always something to pay attention to if you bring your attention back to it. So I use some like classic compositions that come out of this idea of form constants, which are things that you see when you are hallucinating, either with substances or from hypnagogic imagery, or potentially from Gansfeld effect. There's spirals, tunnels, and like honeycomb patterns and that kind of thing. Strobing, both visual strobing and auditory strobing, will actually entrain your brainwaves. So this shows up on an EEG. So you can kind of you can get people into a more relaxed state by showing them visual strobing and auditory strobing. A thing that I like about real-time 3D, which is what these scenes are, they're not video, is that the stereoscopy is much better. So no matter how you turn your head, the compositions are always drawing you off into the distance. That's just like a pet peeve of mine with video, is like the stereo is never quite there, and if you turn your head wrong, then things don't line up as well. I'm also sort of composing everything around the idea of it's more like 180 rather than 360. So it's not designed to look all around. It's like whatever way you look, it's going to orient in that direction. So as of right now, it's non-interactive, but that's a thing I'll be working on for the future. People can stay in the experiences for as long as they want. So the way it's set up right now is you go into an experience, you push a button, you go to the next one, and people generally pick a scene and just stay in there for an hour or so. It's designed to be about an hour long. Designed for mobile headsets, so it runs on the go and the Quest nicely, and of course higher-end headsets as well. So it's designed so you can lie down, like I said, or sit up. There's also a web application so that nurses or anybody else can hop in and trigger sounds to make sure people are alert, and also send people to a specific scene or advanced scenes. So I'm working on a release. I want to get out of those stores soon. I'm hoping by the end of September. A preview version of it is actually going to be inside of Trip, which is an app that was presented by Nanea last year at Games for Change. I'm working on making some contacts in the world for doing more clinical research. It was like the way it was designed for these patients. It works really well to not have any interactivity, but for different kinds of populations, they're probably going to want more interactivity. So that's something else I'm working on. You can do breath detection with VR controllers if you rest them on your chest. So that's a work in progress. And I'm also very interested in EEGs. It is trickier. It's like you have to work with other tools, and I'm very interested in having this be widely accessible. So I haven't got that in yet, but that is on the list of things to do. And there's more information at Visitations VR, including more videos of different scenes. And I will also be posting an APK there soon, and you'll also be able to see it on Trip, hopefully within the next few weeks.
Thank you so much, David. I'll also just plug that you're also helping to facilitate a open XR workshop on day 3 of the festival. So if you want to see more of David, you can join us there. It'll be a fun session on day 3, I believe, starting at 3:30 to 5. So just be there. Thank you so much, David.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm going to invite our next 2 folks who are going to be doing a duo talk here. We've got Michael Owen and Robin Owen White.
Hello.
Here we are.
I can see and hear you very well.
You hear me? Okay, great. Let me do this.
Feel free to get started.
All right. I'm Michael Owen. I'm presenting with my co-founder at MediaCombo, Robin White Owen. We're honored to be one of the finalists in this inspiring competition, especially among such talented artists and creative producers. The program we're talking about today is a virtual visit to Lake Baikal in Windrem.
So the goal of the competition was to develop new VR experiences that are designed to support health and wellness for intergenerational users. And our response was to bring families together for conversations and storytelling, inspired by visits to museums and other places. These virtual family field trips will provide opportunities for people to share memories and to learn from each other and about each other. Several studies have reported on the many benefits of sharing family stories, from strengthening resilience to modeling behavior to being a source of inspiration. For example, according to research quoted by AARP itself, it turns out that sharing family stories with adult children and grandchildren is more than a pleasant pastime. Research has found that a strong narrative helps to build strong family bonds. For adults at midlife and older, passing down lessons and values through stories enhances a sense of well-being. For younger generations, evidence suggests that the more children know about their family history, the less anxiety, the less depression, and the higher self-esteem they exhibit. Grandparents know a lot and have a lot of personal stories to share. And grandkids have different knowledge and their own experiences to impart. So our virtual visits will be designed to spark conversations that reveal expertise and experience that other people didn't even know a family member had. The idea for these virtual visits was born out of work we've been doing for the past few years, producing virtual museum tours and trying to figure out, exploring different ways to make them more enjoyable and more interactive. When we learned about the VR for Change Alcove challenge, we first thought that we would create a demo of a museum tour. But it was mid-March already by then, and the city was in total lockdown. Museums were closed, and everybody who could was sheltering in place. So we really had a dilemma about how to provide an example of what a bonding opportunity inspired by a virtual family field trip would be like.
I had produced and co-directed a 7-minute VR film about Lake Baikal in 2016 with Georgi Molodstov, building on an assignment for Google Expeditions. Robin and I decided to make this the location of our virtual visit and simulate a conversation between a grandfather and his grandson that might take place in a shared VR space. Robin wrote the script. Lake Baikal is the oldest, deepest body of liquid fresh water on our planet, equal in volume to all of the North American Great Lakes combined. It's one of the most extraordinary places on Earth, yet its ecosystem is now threatened by rising water temperatures and human waste. In the VR experience, the grandfather and grandson are immersed together in 360 video, watching short vignettes of life on and near the lake. The boy never has seen anything like these scenes and asks his grandfather to tell him about them. As the Trans-Siberian Express suddenly roars by your head in the VR headset, grandpa describes his experience of taking the longest railroad trip in the world. As you saw in the clip, or you will see in the clip if you check out the video that's online, the grandfather also explains the tradition of the Russian banya as they watch people in bathing suits emerge from the portal of sauna and then submerge themselves to a hole in the ice and to the very cold water. And then as they find themselves in the middle of an enormous Buddhist temple, the center of local Buddhism, the grandfather helps his grandson understand what's going on around him.
Because of the coronavirus restrictions, we were limited to very local voice talent to play the roles in our example field trip. Basically, we had to ask neighbors who lived in our building, and they were kind enough to volunteer their services. So Michael recorded a friend's son speaking his scripted lines into this microphone in the hallway outside our apartment. And the fact that he had to wear a mask the entire time definitely challenged the quality of the recording. Then Michael spent an hour with another masked neighbor while our grandfather read and reread his lines. He took it very seriously. And then our audio editor, Albert Lusink of Tumble and Yaw, mixed their voices into an existing ambisonic mix. So families watching Lake Baikal in VR could easily start conversations and spark memories about the old country where the grandparents might have come from or where their families came from, about train trips they've taken, swimming holes they used to frequent, winter snows, rural villages, other topics that they can be talking about during the VR experience and even after. The idea of creating a script to inspire conversations and offer opportunities for family members to get to know one another better can be applied to other kinds of virtual field trips too. As we mentioned earlier, we also have our sites focused on designing visits to virtual museum galleries with small themed exhibits that would have broad appeal to multiple ages. These too could be a springboard for sharing personal memories and learning together. And what's truly wonderful about these visits is that they're available anytime, anywhere, to bring families together virtually when they can't be together in real life. And if you'd like to see the video so that you have a better sense of what it is that we're talking about, I'm going to put the link in there. It's a 360 video. So you can use your mouse to scroll around. Whoops, hold on. That's not right. Sorry about that. Bear with me 1 minute here. Oh, that's not it. Here we are. Okay. Here's the Vimeo link. I'll just say this is Lake Baikal. Oops. In VR. There you go. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Robin and Michael. Everybody can definitely check out the link that is now in the chat stream, Lake Baikal in VR. So thank you so much, Michael and Robin. You can hop off. To quickly introduce myself, I'm going to be taking over for Raul, who's being pulled in another direction. My name is Tanya Hack, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Games for Change. So next on our lineup is Peter Pichya with Labyrinth Lunacy VR. So Peter, if you want to go ahead and jump in, we're ready for you.
Hello.
Great.
You hear me? How's the audio sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. Let's see. Share. Hello, everyone. So I'm Peter, and I work in the field of experiential design. So I've had this opportunity to create many games and interesting apps along the way. And today I'm here to present one of them. It's Labyrinth Lunacy in VR. In the upper right corner, you see this coin that was minted around 400 BC, which shows how long mazes have been around. So it's fair to say this game was 2,500 years in the making. So in literature and art and cinema, mazes have played a prominent role. Finding a route through a fixed geometric construction has a bunch of philosophical implications dealing with fate, determinism, free will, taking dead ends, false starts, backtracking, getting lost, getting found. But there's something very attractive and primal about mazes, where it's very natural that they've become a source of fun and amusement, finding their way into many toys like the wooden labyrinth or into various interpretations in computer and arcade games. And over the years, newer scientists and researchers have measured the effect of maze solving and brain activity. The areas of the brain that deal with planning, decision-making, navigation, spatial memory, learning are all activated. Maze solving has served as a diagnostic tool for some neurological disorders also. But bringing mazes into VR, I chose to place a player in the middle of a huge circular labyrinth with a sort of a God's eye view, and the player is able to rotate in the center of the maze, tilting in the horizontal plane of this maze with the Oculus controller guiding a ball through the maze. So this game is specifically designed for VR devices with 3 degrees of freedom, like the Oculus Go. And one technical innovation I had to devise to make this game possible is this gimbal lock controller, where the plane of the maze tilts as you tilt the controller, and then as the tilt position of the controller rotates with the player, as he turns on 3D, the tilt follows him, but the maze is locked in its y-axis and doesn't rotate with the player. So this is very key to making this game work. So the player turns, the tilt position follows the turn of the player, the maze doesn't turn. So it's hard for me to explain, but it was just as difficult to actually program. So it took a lot of strange math, trial and error to get this sort of control right for the game. But here is the game, or some video of the gameplay in VR. So one of the attractions of the game is that it requires almost no onboarding or instructions. It's very natural to tilt. It's really elegant and intuitive just to tilt and rotate around the maze and maneuver the ball using Newtonian physics, right? So it's so you see the gameplay. I'll let it play for a while. So I don't envision this experience to be a one and done. I'm using procedural programming to create random mazes and having some difficulty adjustment where you can set the difficulty of the maze, the complexity of the maze. So every game session will be its whole unique experience. And one last point, as I was making the game, and where you're visually manipulating and tilting the play field and physically turning around back and forth in 360, there's actually a tangible physical therapeutic benefit. So which ties to this idea that as we grow older, as humans grow older, many of us struggle with balance. It's just a product of weaker muscles, poor vision, medications, infections. So this problem with balance in older Americans has a cost. Almost 1 in 10 falls requires hospitalization. And this hospitalization actually adds up to almost $67 billion last year. So to combat that, they've used this sort of physical therapy called vestibular exercises, which has proven very effective. So Labyrinth Lunacy VR could actually be part of this sort of vestibular rehab therapy to help restore and maintain balance in older populations. VR usage in physical rehab is actually becoming more common. A number of VR, their device recently in the news, it was for pain management, got just 1 FDA clearance. This is the product roadmap, where there's some milestones I wanted to hit before we final release. Most importantly, I want to get a multiplayer feature which allows for competitive and cooperative gameplay. That's very important. So you'll be able to see another player's like ghosted ball rolling inside the same maze as you're trying to navigate the maze too. So in summary, Labyrinth Lunacy is a simple, fun, intuitive game for all ages, requiring almost no onboarding or instruction to get started. Solving mazes exercises the brain. It activates the areas of the brain dealing with spatial organization, motor function, planning, decision-making. And lastly, Labyrinth Lunacy could be utilized as a possible VR component of a balanced exercise therapy program. So with that, I thank everyone for the time, and I'll leave this live here just in case anyone wants to connect with me, LinkedIn or Twitter. And with that, I will stop sharing and return it to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Peter. That was awesome. So I'm gonna ask everybody to hold your questions until the end. We are gonna do a short Q&A. Fingers crossed we'll have time. But before that, we have two projects left that we're gonna hear about. The first one is Avatar VR. And the creator of that project, Sharon Lynn, is going to be telling us a little bit about it. So Sharon, if you could please come to stage.
Hi. All right. So hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm representing Chakrascape, or Avatar VR. So our project is a VR experience that allows users to engage in puzzle activities that allow them to practice mindfulness. So our team is made up of students from the Boston area. So we have 4 students from MIT studying computer science, 1 filmmaker from the MIT Media Lab, a CMS or media studies student from MIT, and an art student at Mass Art. We met through the Oculus VR Next Gen program, where we had the opportunity to build a VR experience that would utilize all of our combined skills in order to tell a story that hasn't before been told in this medium. And ultimately, we decided that we wanted to work on a project that was inspired by our combined backgrounds. So you might be curious why the project is called Avatar VR. We came together and decided that Avatar: The Last Airbender was a really inspirational animation, both for its portrayal of diversity as well as for its portrayal of Asian-inspired martial arts. And in particular, we thought that the Buddhist traditions and spiritual traditions that inspired this show made for a really great opportunity to utilize the practices that were shown in the animation and to blend them with our experience building VR games and VR experiences. So on the left, I have a couple of the other aspects of the experience that we ended up borrowing a little bit or being inspired by. So for instance, we have some aspects of Native American peacemaking. We have justice principles and restorative justice that's also going to play a role. So to give a short recap of how the story goes, essentially the user begins in an astral plane. So I have a screenshot from the experience there on the right, and they begin in this world where there are stars and the galaxy is being formed, and they realize that this is actually representing their inner turmoil. So the objective is to utilize the elemental energies, so air, water, fire, and earth, in order to their inner chakras. And in between these puzzles where they're restoring balance, we have a 360 narrative, which was filmed in order to place the user in a scene of conflict. So this is an optional experience for them within the game. But if they choose to be placed in these scenes of conflict, then they're able to have a safe space to practice utilizing their newfound skills in meditation to calm themselves in high stress situations and to really evaluate how they respond to different difficult situations. So we went through the scene design process, and we wanted to make this game both inspired by martial arts and meditation and spiritual traditions, but also to have some interesting puzzle elements. So these were a couple of the puzzles that we ended up trying to implement in a basic MVP format to see if they would be good for basically turning into a VR experience. In addition, we also had a audio design process, which allowed us to procedurally design our audio. So all of the music and sound effects are being created as the gameplay is going on. They're not pre-recorded. And finally, for the physical design, we're using an Oculus VR headset. So we have the 2 controllers, and we wanted to mimic as many of the martial arts traditions as we could, while also staying true to both the range of motions that a human is capable of and the range of motions associated with each of the bending traditions. So essentially on the right, we have a variety of different stances from the animation, as well as the different sorts of motions that a person can do when they're holding these controllers. Ultimately, we ended up using the touch controllers, their accelerometers and their gyroscopes for data in terms of distance and positioning, which would allow us to set certain thresholds so that a user had to move their arm at a certain speed in a certain direction in order to accomplish a task, for instance. We didn't use gesture training, which would have required us to pre-train our experience with a certain particular gesture. So instead, it's a little bit more primitive, but that also makes it a little bit more accurate to the types of martial arts that we're basing our experience off of. So now I'll show a couple of screenshots from the game. So the first room is the Earth room. So here you can see the user has to make their way across a bed of rock, and slowly the ground falls away and there's columns left. And they have to use their bending skills, which is here represented by a ray tracing element, in order to move the columns so that they can form a solid path across. So the game is designed to be intuitive enough that people of all ages can easily understand how to go about with the gameplay, but it's also challenging in terms of having to both use your physical senses navigating around the room, since it's a 360 experience, and your hand motions. So the next room is the air room. Here we are using our airbending skills in order to move mirrors around. So the mirrors are reflecting a certain path of light, and we have to get the light from one side of the room to the other, which is indicated by white circles. And before we are able to do that, this giant wall falls down. So we have to basically escape by realigning the mirrors. So this again makes use of both the 360 experience as well as the controllers, and requires a lot of precision and a lot of calmness in the user. So the next room is a fire room, and we decide to place this in the middle of a volcano. So this puzzle is basically where the user has to pick a candle and to blow out the candle, or to set the candle. And once they set the candle, all the candles around that particular candle are switched to their opposite. So the objective is to get all the candles lit. And this is both like a brain teaser as well as a physical puzzle for the player, because of the because they have to be able to navigate themselves through in space, but also solve the puzzle, which can be pretty tricky. And finally, we have our water room. So this is placed in an ice chamber, and we have columns that are coming up, and the objective is to navigate the water from one side of the room to the other. So the columns can basically be moved around in order for the water to bounce off the columns. And they're using their water bending skills to both move the columns as well as move the streams of water so that they're able to navigate. So the objective is that one stream of water can hit one hole on the other side. So you basically have to match up all of the streams in order to escape the room. And finally, for the conflict scenes, we recorded these scenes with actors in 360 video, and they basically depict a day in the life of a student going about her school day while facing various conflicts. And these scenes tend to have heightened emotions, so they place the player in a state of stress. And we wanted this to mimic what it might be like for them to face similar situations in real life, and to be able to see whether or not they could utilize our practices of mindfulness in order to overcome their emotions. So our intended audience is basically anyone who has access to an Oculus VR headset and touch controllers, which is anyone from a child to someone who's much older. And we wanted this to be for people who are interested in learning more about themselves mentally through guided meditations, as well as perhaps people who might be interested in solving puzzles. Ultimately, as we play tested this experience with students in the Boston area, we found that they really appreciated the opportunity to learn empathy, both learning about the experience of living as someone who maybe lived a different life from them, but also how to face their existing preconceptions and biases, and using this experience as a way to deal with their physical, mental, and emotional understanding of both themselves and of others. We were able to find that a lot of the positive responses were because people felt that they were able to catalyze change in their emotions. And ultimately, that was the goal of Avatar VR. We wanted to create a new experience that would allow people and players of all ages to experience their emotions from a different perspective, and to learn about healthy coping mechanisms to help them navigate life through all of its stresses. So I want to take some time to thank all of our partners for their help in making this experience come to life. and I'll give the floor back. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. And our final project that we're going to hear about from Chen is called Ama's Memento. So I'm going to invite him to screen.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Great.
Awesome. Let me share my screen now. All right. How does it look? Hopefully it looks good.
Reminder for anyone who's joined a little bit late, you can double click on the screenshot or on the screen share to pull it up larger on your screen.
All right. I guess it's my turn. So, hi everyone. My name is Raul, and today I will be telling you a little bit about Memento, which actually started as a very personal project for myself. And this is actually a photograph of me and my grandparents about 15 years ago, when my grandpa is still here with me. But his story kind of inspired me to create this project, which in turn became something that me and my team hold dear to as we began to share more stories. So the topic that we want to focus on is about remembering. So I think a lot of people in my generation are encountering a difficult problem, which is the problem of forgetting things. And it is quite interesting because I haven't really considered this myself until recently when I looked at the amount of data that I'm capturing on a daily basis. And scrolling through my photo album on my phone, I can't help but look at all these moments that have seemed to disappear into the void. So I feel like that there is an incomplete system right now where we are prompted with these automated reminders on a daily basis, yet these reminders are still unable to turn our data back into the memories. And I can't help but continue to forget on a day-to-day basis. So me and my team wanted to create something, and this was a solution that we thought would benefit people. So we took out what has worked in the past, which were photo albums and photographs, and we decided to start from there. And we brought some of these photographs into VR, and we created pretty much an experience around this, which served as our Bible, in the beginning. It's simply a carousel with the ability for you to, I guess, share and relive moments that you have in your own life. So it was a small demo, but it really showed us how powerful it could be when you have a memory trigger built using a virtual reality experience. So we took this as a sign to go forward, and we ventured on and decided to create Ama's Memento, which is a whole museum that is dedicated to my grandmother and also my family. We use techniques like photogrammetry, 360 filmmaking, and also the interactive parts of virtual reality to realize my grandmother's dream of building an art museum. So you can see in the snippet down below, we have photographs and also video interviews of my grandmother, which we have captured during this trip, which me and 11 other students from USC flew back home to document my grandmother's story. And this in turn has created a piece not just capture my grandmother's visual appearance or how she looked, but also how she sounds, what she is like as a person, also all the friends that she has surrounded herself with. And I'm confident to say that, down the line, down the generation, we would still be able to get to know this grandmother, which I hold dear to very much. So with this project, we are very fortunate to have been able to showcase at multiple locations. And also we've been receiving some recognitions from the community as well. But the most important part of making Almas Momento were the stories that people would in turn share with us. These are all the photographs of the people that would come back to me and my team, telling us about their own stories, their own family background and history, asking us if they can create something like we did, something that they can use to remember their loved ones. And that's when me and my team realized that, well, not everyone is a storyteller, but everyone has a story to tell. And we're here to help people tell their own stories. We wanted to create a tool for these storytellers, or the so-called givers, who wants to tell the story of their loved ones, but don't have the technical know-how to produce something in VR. We want to help them share their story with their parents, grandparents, family, and friends. So we decided to spend a year to experiment and see who would be interested in a service like this. We've engaged with people on a personal level, like Helen, to festivals like the Las Fotos project, which was meant for the Latino American community. And we also had a chance to partner with the California African American Museum to touch on a project that, talks about this racial issue that we're dealing with. And most recently, we just finished our partnership with Facebook for a project called Dear Mom, which was released on Mother's Day. This was our turn to create something that actually allowed other people to make stories, make VR experiences, and share it with their own mothers on Mother's Day. Over that weekend, we had 12,000 engagements worldwide. And obviously, Dear Mom was kind of the pinnacle of what my team has created. We were baffled by the amount of stories that people would share with us, the gifts that they would create and share with their mothers. Most importantly, I also had a chance to make a gift for my mom as well. None of this would have been possible if it weren't for my team. We all came together at USC's Mixed Reality Studio, where I met every single one of them. And yeah, we started from there, sharing a same passion of telling personal stories using virtual reality. Along the road, we had a whole team of advisors, mentors that came to us, helping us with our developments from different industries, different fields. And we're super grateful that we're here today. So with that, I want to end today's presentation by thanking everyone, especially the Alcove VR Challenge and the Games for Change Festival, for inviting me and my team to share our story with all of you. We hope that you can all join us on this journey to make the world a more memorable place. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. It's such a beautiful project. So I think we have a couple minutes left. I may be able to get to one question. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to enter them into the chat right now. And I will invite all the panelists and Cezara back on stage to answer To answer that question and to give a final wave, I also wanted to quickly recognize 4 other projects that were submitted to this competition that we would like to recognize with an honorable mention. Those projects include Philosopher's Walk by Ricardo Zuniga, Dear Mom, which was created by AMA VR team and Chen's team, Conquest IQ by Hubert VR, and Digital Emotes by Aaron Tate. So you guys will, all of those projects will be invited to be showcased on the Alcove platform, and we will be announcing the winner of the challenge and showcasing video from all of these 5 finalists, in addition to the 4 honorable mention projects tomorrow evening at 6:10, I believe, on the main stage. So please stay tuned for that winner announcement, but we're excited to be able to extend this opportunity for these wonderful developers to work with Cezara and her team at AARP Labs further and include these games on Alcove, or experiences on Alcove VR. So I think we have 2 minutes. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat. Or Cezara, I would also love to turn the last minute or 2 over to you if you have anything else to add about the challenge, these projects, or I guess the opportunity maybe for developers that are out there who are interested in learning more about Alcove and want to get their projects on Alcove. How would they go about doing that?
Absolutely. To connect with us, alcovevr.com is our website. The app is available on Oculus Go, coming soon to Quest. You can connect us through the website. Can everybody hear me well? I'm hearing some background noise. So again, contact information, if you can hear me, it's all available on the website at alcovevr.com, as well as more information on Playground. But aside from that, I would really like to say a big thank you to you all, not only to the participants and although so many of you who submitted for this challenge, but also the full team at Games for Change, with whom this would have never been the success that it was. And we're really excited for our collaboration and working together. So thank you, Tanya and Susanna and Raul, and everybody else who makes this festival happen year over year behind the scenes. You guys are so wonderful. Cannot hear you.
I hear you.
Thank you so much to everybody for sharing your beautiful projects, and we will see you tomorrow evening. So take care, thank you, and we will see you soon.